Hey, what's up, guys, and welcome to another episode of Gamescript. Tonight, we're looking at the Chicago Bears versus the Carolina Panthers. It's a game being played in Chicago, with Chicago as 3-point favorites currently and a 38.5-point total. Chicago at -3 is a little bit surprising to me. I would have figured that they would have been bigger favorites in this game. Carolina has been awful on defense all season. So has Chicago, though. And we are looking at a game where Justin Fields is doubtful to play tonight. So there's big implications in this game. It's a game versus two of the worst teams in the league. And Carolina traded their first round pick of 2024 to the Chicago Bears. So the Chicago Bears are highly incentivized to win this game because they want to get another loss for Carolina and push Carolina further down those rankings as far as ability to not get the first round pick. They want to get that number one overall pick, and Chicago needs Carolina to have the worst record in the league in order to obtain that. So they are highly incentivized to win. And even if they lose, Chicago is probably a bottom three team right now, and one of the top three picks for the 2024 season. So Chicago is sitting really well as far as draft capital next year, but winning this game would be huge for them. And meanwhile, Carolina is completely banged up and in the secondary, and we don't know what their incentives are for tonight. They're playing in Chicago. Their season is lost already. The only thing that they're playing for right now is pride. And I think the $1 million question for tonight is going to be, does Carolina even show up tonight? Hey, what's up, guys? Simon Edwards at Pumacom here with Heat Seeker Sports, and you're watching Gamescript. This is a show where I break down these one-game slates for DraftKings Showdown contests. And tonight we're looking at the Chicago Bears versus the Carolina Panthers. They're playing in Chicago, with Chicago as 3-point favorites currently. Right now, Justin Fields is doubtful to play tonight, and that's the current line. So I don't know if that's taken Fields into account yet, but it's a pretty close, a lot closer than I thought it would be, given what this game means to Chicago versus what it means to Carolina, and the fact that they're playing in Chicago. But I think it's just a testament to how bad Chicago has been this year, and they're playing a team that's even worse in the Carolina Panthers. The Panthers' defense has been awful this year, especially against the running back position, and Chicago has the fourth best rushing attack in the league right now, as far as rushing yards. So right now we're looking at a strength on weakness type of matchup, and in addition, the Carolina secondary is completely banged up. We're looking at Brian Burns being out. He's the edge rusher. We're looking at cornerback CJ Henderson being out. We're looking at linebacker Justin Houston on IR. DJ Chark, the wide receiver, is out. Tight end Stephen Sullivan is out. Laviska Shenault is out. This is all Carolina injuries. Cornerback J.C. Horn is on IR. Cornerback Jeremy Chin is on IR. Linebacker Shaq Thompson is on IR. And Xavier Woods, the free safety, might be out tonight as well for Carolina. So that gives you an idea of the state of Carolina tonight. And as far as the Chicago side, we got Justin Fields being the biggest piece of news. He's doubtful, recording this right now at 9 Eastern time. So Justin Fields is doubtful. Khalil Herbert is not expected to play. That's a big piece of news that we got this morning. Cole Kmet did not practice. He's banged up. Cole Kmet, I haven't heard any word on him not playing tonight, so I'd expect him to play, but he's banged up. Offensive line, Nate Davis is out, and linebacker Tremaine Edmonds is out. So that's a big piece of news for guys like Adam Thielen and Chuba Hubbard tonight. So before we get into this player pool analysis, why don't you give a like on the video? I'm looking for 15 likes to put out a shorter video with my favorite picks later on today. You're going to want to hit that like button because we still got some news to break throughout the day to give a better idea of the player pool and my favorite players on the slate. So hit that like button, looking for 15 likes on this. And also subscribe to the YouTube page if you haven't already. Subscribers are growing pretty steadily. I appreciate that, everybody. Just make sure to help keep that growing and hit that subscribe button. I do these game shows for all these island games. Going to be doing one for the Germany show. Germany show this weekend. I'll do probably about an hour-long show with full analysis of the Germany show. You won't see that anywhere else, pretty much. So make sure you subscribe to the channel so you have access to all these shows and alerts on all these shows. So gonna also do a stack show for the main slate this week, and that'll come out at some point on Saturday most likely. So make sure you are subscribed, and we'll dig into this now. This is a good game for a showdown slate. It's two terrible teams, and optimizers are leaning towards 4-2 Carolina builds. Surprisingly, it's 42% in my first run in the optimizer. That's with not adjusting the player pool at all. That's with not changing any of the projections around. And this is Roto Grinders I'm referring to. Their optimizer is putting out a 42% 4-2 Carolina build. I'm sure that will change as news comes in throughout the day. I find it pretty tough to believe that it's that strongly in favor of Carolina. We're looking at a 3-3. I think that's looking at about probably about 33%. And obviously with the 4-2 leaning so heavily towards Carolina, we're looking at a 5-1 of about 13% in favor of Carolina. So I don't know how Carolina is coming up so favorably in these builds, but I mean, that leaves us an easy path to get different with these Chicago Bears, who I like way better than the Carolina Panthers tonight, regardless. Looking at Adam Thielen to start. Thielen's matchup improves without Tremaine Edmonds. Otherwise, the Chicago defense has been really good against slot receivers. Thielen, 7.9 points last week. He had a slow week. That's his worst week on the season apart from week one. He's been on fire, proving that boomers can still put up fantasy points. Against Houston, he put up 15. He put up 32 against Miami, 31 against Detroit, 15 against Minnesota, 34 against Seattle. That's the day that Spread and I put him in the captain on this same show. And New Orleans, he scored 20 points against them. So Thielen has just been on fire this year. Slowed down a little bit last week. Don't know if that's his age catching up to him or if that's because the matchup was just too much for him. But regardless, Thielen is the top priced guy on the slate for good reason. And the flex, he's at 11.8. Fields is doubtful tonight. He's got a thumb injury, and Tyler Bagent has been playing respectfully since Fields has been out. So don't be surprised if they decide to sit Fields in an easy matchup tonight. DJ Moore has a good matchup tonight as well. The Panthers are giving points up to number one wide receivers. So that puts DJ Moore in a good position. And Moore has had two slow games in a row. So we like to see that because last time we had a Bears game in primetime, I put DJ Moore in the captain as my highest recommended play, and he ended up just crushing, scoring like 50 DraftKings points. So it was a huge night, and we get DJ Moore again with potential ownership discount. He's looking at 12% ownership according to RG right now in the captain. So that makes DJ Moore interesting tonight. I would expect him to get peppered with targets. as long as they're throwing the ball tonight. And honestly, I don't know how much they're going to be throwing the ball tonight, because I expect them to take a decent size lead and to be able to just like have their way with the Panthers. Either way they decide to attack this team tonight. Bryce Young. Bryce Young has been horrible this year. He's been a bust as a number 1 overall pick if you're judging by this season. CJ Stroud has been just crushing him on every level from a rookie perspective. And Bryce Young, 12 points last week, 14.5 points the week before, 13 points the week before that. Just awful overall. He's had 1 week where he scored 20 fantasy points. But, that also makes Bryce Young interesting tonight, because he's going up against a really bad defense, and that puts Bryce Young in the potential to, be one of these guys that we get for low ownership. Let's check out what his captain ownership is tonight. I am seeing 9%. That's way too high for Bryce Young, 9% captain ownership. So probably avoid him in the captain. But, we might get, like a slight discount on Bryce Young's overall ownership, seeing him at 53%. That seems a little low for a quarterback. So if you wanted to do a Carolina heavy build right now, that is not looking very contrarian. And to put Bryce Young in a Carolina heavy build, to me, he would have to be, like a way to get different. And I don't know if that's going to be the situation tonight, judging on what I've seen from, the optimizers so far. So interesting thing with Carolina versus Chicago is the Bears are allowing 20 DraftKings points a game to the quarterback position. So that makes Bryce Young a little bit more interesting. On the other side, Carolina is allowing 16.5 points to the quarterback position. I think a big part of that is because teams are choosing to run on Carolina. Carolina is allowing 32 DraftKings points a game to the running back position. They're allowing 16 points a game, which is a high number, to the wideouts. So that's where we like DJ Moore. 13 points a game to the slot. That's not good for Darnell Mooney. And 8 points a game to tight end. That's not good for Cole Kmet, who we've already seen is already banged up. So it might be a slower night for Cole Kmet. Tyson Bagent has not been very good. He's got about 13 DraftKings points a game. He had 20 DraftKings points a game last week against New Orleans, but a lot of that came from his rushing. And Carolina is the top team in the league as far as defending rushing quarterbacks and the yardage that they allow per game to rushing quarterbacks. So Bagent, not the best matchup, but he's in a good spot as far as, facing a weak overall defense and, the game script that I would envision for tonight's game. So moving on to D'Onta Foreman. Foreman is in a really good spot. We just got news that Khalil Herbert is doubtful for tonight. So Foreman gets propelled into a great spot against the team, allowing, I believe, the most DraftKings points per game. Foreman has not done anything either. He's got 8 points against New Orleans, 5 points against the Chargers, but he did have 33 points against Las Vegas, another weak run defense. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Foreman go off tonight. He makes a good captain option. As far as, 32 points a game is how many points per game that Carolina is allowing to running back. And I would expect this game to be, heavily in Chicago's favor. He's playing at home with no Khalil Herbert against a bad run D. Things are just looking good for D'Onta Foreman, I would say. And it's a revenge game. He used to play in Carolina. So he's got that going for him too. Chuba Hubbard has a good matchup against Chicago. Chicago is doing well versus the run, but they're not doing well against passing or receiving running backs. And they are also missing Tremaine Edmonds, as I mentioned earlier, which also helps Chuba Hubbard's cause. He took over the lead role officially from Miles Sanders. 16 rush attempts last week, 15 the week before that, 19 the week before that, 11 fantasy points, 7 fantasy points, 16 fantasy points. So we're looking at a situation where Chuba Hubbard has a decent matchup. He might be one of the only guys on Carolina worth playing tonight. If they're playing from behind and they're throwing to the running back, obviously that's going to benefit the receiving back. Darnell Mooney doesn't have the best matchup tonight, but he's playing a weak overall defense that's missing basically their entire secondary or a big portion of it. He came alive a little bit last week with 13 fantasy points, but I wouldn't imagine the volume being heavy enough for tonight with the game script that I'm envisioning for Darnell Mooney to really do much of anything tonight. But keep him in your player pool because, any one of these wide receivers could go off. DJ Moore is in a revenge game too, by the way. He used to play in Carolina. So I would favor DJ Moore and D'Onta Foreman as far as captain leans tonight. Cole Kmet has been on fire this year. He's been doing especially well with Bagent under center. And Kmet got 18 fantasy points last week and 24 the week after that. 24 last week and 18 the week before that. So that shows you what he's done with Bagent as the quarterback. Before that, he had a couple good weeks with Fields too. Cole Kmet just having an overall good year, but he is in a rough matchup tonight. So not sure what to expect. I'd probably decide his ownership based on what we see for decide how much of him I'm playing based on what we see for ownership. So that's a Cole Kmet situation. We go down a little bit further. We see DJ Chark is doubtful tonight. Miles Sanders has not done much, and he's got a tough matchup tonight. So I would probably shy away from Miles Sanders unless you want to get a little bit different. Cairo Santos is in a good spot because they shouldn't have any trouble moving the ball. And if they get in the red zone and maybe Tyler Bagent doesn't do well in the red zone, Cairo Santos is in play. Hayden Hurst is not done anything this year. He's just been MIA. They've been favoring guys like Tommy Tremble more, but the tight end position has probably the best, one of the best matchups on the Carolina side, with Chicago allowing 18 points a game to the tight end position. They allow 23 points a game to the slot position. That's good for Thielen, despite like all the overall defense that Carolina has done, that Chicago has done for the slot receiver. They're still allowing 23 points a game to the slot, DraftKings points a game to the slot, 14 and a half points to wideouts. They are Chicago is allowing 24 points a game to running backs and 20 points a game to quarterback. So we kind of see, like a Thielen to Young to Thielen, and one of these tight ends as being potentially the best matchups that we're seeing on the the side of Carolina's offense. But there's another wide receiver that I'm interested in on the Carolina side that I'll get into in a minute here. But Hayden Hurst has a good matchup, but he's just not getting the volume. Bears D I'm interested in tonight with just the overall situation, like them needing to pull out a big game. We also got Eberflus versus Reich. Like, that's an interesting matchup because Reich hired Eberflus to be his defensive coordinator when they were in Indy together, and now they are facing off against each other. So we're talking about a defense that is well familiar with this offense and Frank Reich's offense. Frank Reich gave up play calling. This is how bad Bryce Young is. Like, the guy who was the offensive coordinator for the Eagles in the year they won the Super Bowl had to give up play calling because the team was doing so bad. So Frank Reich gave up the play calling, but it's still his offense, and the Bears defense is a good matchup for us tonight, just facing off against a familiar offense that has been struggling, and they have a lack of weapons. And if Chicago takes the type of lead that I'm expecting them to take tonight, then that makes the defense interesting, defending against a horrible quarterback in Bryce Young. And on top of that, I believe Carolina has, one of the worst. The Bears have the worst turnover differential in the league, but Carolina has been the one of the worst as well. They gave up. I think Bryce Young had three interceptions, including 2 pick sixes last week alone. So Bears are in a good spot defensively tonight against this offense, especially if they are forcing Bryce Young to beat them. I mean, honestly, even if they're forcing the running backs, because there's no run game on Carolina, so they're going to be forced to throw the ball no matter what. Pinheiro, take him or leave him tonight. He hasn't really done too much. He's had 3 games over double-digit points. Depends on what your feelings are for how much points Carolina can put up. But never take a kicker out of the pool unless you expect it to be a complete just blowout where the kicker on the other team won't even be in play. Panthers D, they're in play too. Haven't really done too much, but Bears, as I mentioned, the highest turnover differential, so that makes Carolina in play because the Bears will be ripe for a pick 6, and maybe that's the only way. One of the few ways that Carolina can win this game is if their defense shows up and they get those turnovers. Roschon Johnson is going to be the change of pace back for Chicago. I don't envision them playing from behind, and he hasn't really done much of anything this year. So I'm not really interested in Roschon tonight unless Chicago decides it's a week that they finally want to get him going. But D'Onta Foreman, revenge game, I would not envision D'Onta Foreman giving up too much work to Roschon Johnson tonight. Jonathan Mingo is in a interesting spot. He's very cheap at 2,800, and we are looking at DJ Chark, who is out tonight. So that makes Jonathan Mingo all the more interesting. He's going to be taking over pretty much that lead wideout role, him and Terrace Marshall. So Jonathan Mingo is interesting tonight in a game where I expect them to have to throw a lot. Tommy Tremble is interesting as well. Tommy Tremble has he's got 2 touchdowns, and with what's his face, Stephen Sullivan out, Tommy Tremble and Hayden Hurst will be splitting the work, and Tremble's been looked a little bit targeted a little bit more, at least in the red zone. He scored 2 touchdowns on the year. I don't know, with the best matchup on the slate, you got to at least consider Tremble, and you got to consider Hayden Hurst. Maybe later on in the day, I'll have a better perspective on that after having done more research. But Tremble is the guy that scored the touchdown so far for the tight end position. Darrington Evans, he came out of nowhere last week and took all that work away from Roschon 2 weeks ago in that showdown slate. I was high on Roschon Johnson, and Darrington Evans came and took all the passing work from him. So just super frustrating that situation. But Evans, you got to keep him in the player pool just based on what this 3-headed backfield is looking like. But I like D'Onta Foreman way better than any other running back on the slate tonight. Let's see. We got Tanyan on the Chicago side. Not really interested there. Blackshear is back this week. Terrace Marshall is only $400 with that situation I was talking about. DJ Chark being out, that makes Terrace Marshall interesting. He hasn't done much of anything except for week 4. Week 3, I believe, DJ Chark was out a couple of these weeks. Let me see what weeks DJ Chark was out. Let's see. DJ Chark was out for weeks 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He was out for week 1, basically. And Terrace Marshall in week 1. Let's see what he did. All right. Terrace Marshall in week 1 only had he had 6 targets in week 1, and that was with DJ Chark out. So keep Marshall in your player pool is the gist of that. He's $400. And other than that, I don't see anyone else that I'm interested in on this player pool. So let's build a lineup here. I'll give you what the optimizer is trying to spit out. They like Chuba Hubbard in the captain. Chuba Hubbard, I envision him getting a decent amount of work. He's one of my, probably 2 Carolina guys that I'll have the most exposure to. Let's see. We like basically a stack with Thielen, Bryce Young, and Terrace Marshall. This is the chalk, by the way. I don't, not the chalk necessarily, but this is what the lineup optimizer is spitting out as of 9 a.m. Eastern time in the morning. So take this with a grain of salt when you're building your lineups. They also like Bagent. So I'm going to get Bagent in there. And they like Cole Kmet. So that's basically the what the optimizer is currently spitting out as the optimal lineup. I don't like that lineup, so we're going to clear this out and have a little bit of fun. Hopefully, this is a little bit of fun. Hopefully, it's not the popular way to go by the time it's time to go tonight. But I like Foreman in the captain. I like Foreman's situation. I like Hubbard. I like them playing from behind and Hubbard getting a lot of work in that receiving game. I like DJ Moore because I think that they're going to take a big lead with DJ Moore and then they're going to run out the clock. I like Bagent. He's shown some upside this year. I just think in this matchup with no Brian Burns and Carolina just being banged up in the secondary, it's just like it's too good of a matchup for Bagent and DJ Moore. So I like them racking up the points, but I like Foreman stepping in to take a lot of those touchdowns and just run the ball for like the second half or the fourth quarter or whatever. I like the Bears D because I like the Bears D's matchup tonight. I think they're in a really good spot. And I think if you go this direction, you have options. You could put in the Panthers D too. We've seen 2 defenses work in the past, and this is sloppy shootout potential. Or at the very least, it's you got the potential for 2 defenses to show up in the optimal. But I like Jonathan Mingo. I think he's my favorite play in this range at 2,800 with the situation with DJ Chark. You could swap out Mingo for some of these other guys that I mentioned. You could, if you wanted to put in Darrington Evans, if you wanted to put in Terrace Marshall, if you want to put in any of those guys, this also would work with if you want to put DJ Moore in that captain spot. This is a game where I envision the Chicago Bears winning handily. There's just too much going in the Bears' favor tonight. I just don't see enough going in the favor of the Panthers, and they're playing at home on top of it. Even without Justin Fields tonight, it's looking like he's doubtful. The Bears is 3-point favorites. I don't think that that's enough. I just don't see Carolina putting up much of a fight tonight, given their constraints and their injuries, and it's just everything with Carolina this year. They just suck. And Chicago is incentivized to win this game, helps them out with getting a better pick next year. So make sure to hit that like button, trying to get to 15. And I'll hit a smaller video later on today with my favorite overall picks on the slate. And hit subscribe on the YouTube channel. Subscribe to these shows. Been hitting a lot on these captains. Just hit the other day with the Cincinnati versus Bills game. Just almost crushed it with the lineup that I actually built on the show with the T. Higgins captain build. I was only off on 2 spots. I just didn't have Drew Sample in there. Like that was the big one. But, swapping Diggs out for Mixon in that lineup and then adding in Drew Sample would have gotten you first place in that contest. So it was a really good build, really good game script, and hopefully everybody who watched that show won money. And subscribe to the channel, and we'll put out a lot more of these shows in the future.